She stood on the graduation stage, declaring her undying love for me in front of thousands, expecting a fairy tale ending to her carefully choreographed spectacle. But the auditorium fell into a deathly silence when I simply stared back and revealed that I already had a girlfriend, shattering the delusion she had spent years ignoring. To understand why this public proposal was a nightmare instead of a dream, we have to rewind to the days when I was nothing more than her needy puppy. Sophie and I were raised as a package deal, our mothers conspiring over wine to plan a wedding before we could even read. I spent my entire childhood swallowing that fantasy, grinning like an idiot whenever Aunt Penny reserved me as her future son-in-law, blissfully unaware that Sophie was secretly repulsed by the very idea of me. The illusion shattered violently during a family dinner just before college applications. When the parents started joking about saving for our wedding, Sophie didn't just disagree, she detonated. She slammed her hands on the table, face twisted with genuine disgust, and screamed that she would never choose me, not even if every other man on earth dropped dead. She called me pathetic, stripping away my dignity in front of everyone, until her father physically slapped her into silence. She swore she was going to Princeton to escape me, treating me like a criminal she needed a restraining order against. But karma has a wicked sense of humor. She failed to get in and landed right back at my safety school. I didn't see her again until moving day on the freshman quad. Instead of a fresh start, she leaned in close, ensuring only I could hear and hiss that she was miserable being stuck at this crappy school, with me, driving the knife in one last time just to make sure I knew my place. I sidestepped her like she was a traffic cone, leaving her hand hovering awkwardly in the humid air. Aunt Penny, ever the peacekeeper, hurried to smooth over the tension, apologizing profusely for her daughter's immaturity, as we walked toward the dorms. But as I dragged my suitcase over the uneven pavement, I made my stance clear. I told Penny that the childhood jokes were over, that we were adults now, and I intended to keep a healthy distance from Sophie moving forward. I had finally accepted that childhood fantasies aren't real, and a crush cannot be forced. Aunt Penny gripped my arm, her face twisting with disapproval. She refused to accept my resignation, insisting that I was the only son-in-law she would ever accept, and that Sophie just didn't know what was good for her yet. She urged me to be patient, to handle her daughter with a gentle touch, rather than a cold shoulder. My stomach turned. I physically couldn't swallow my pride and chase, after a girl who had rejected me so cruelly, so I gently pulled my arm free from her grasp and walked away, leaving her delusions on the sidewalk. Sophie wasted no time becoming the unofficial queen of the freshman class, attracting a swarm of admirers. A few months later, my Instagram feed confirmed she had found someone. She posted photos wrapped in the arms of a handsome guy, smiling with a brilliance she never showed me. She shared screenshots of their texts, revealing a soft, delicate, and forgiving side to her personality that I didn't know existed. Watching her treat another man with the grace and patience she had always denied me was the final nail in the coffin. In that moment, whatever was left of my childhood crush finally withered and died. I decided to close the book on that unrequited love story, but halfway through the school year she summoned me downstairs with a curt text. I found her waiting impatiently by the entrance, where she shoved a gift box into my chest limited edition sneakers sent by her mother. Before I could even refuse, she turned to leave, tossing a cruel accusation over her shoulder. She insinuated that I was using her mother to play tricks and get close to her, reminding me one last time that we would never happen. I stood there holding the box, the sting of her assumption burning my throat. I didn't chase her. Instead, I calculated the price of the shoes and Venmoed the money directly to Aunt Penny, explaining that I wanted to avoid causing any trouble in Sophie's relationship. I thought paying the debt would buy me peace, but a few days later a stranger sprinted up to me on the quad and drove his fist into my face, screaming that I was trying to steal his girlfriend. The brawl landed us in the dean's office, where I learned that this unhinged assailant was Sophie's boyfriend. When Sophie arrived, the guy immediately played the victim, accusing me of instigating the fight. I watched as she soothed him with a gentle voice, though her eyes darted toward me with a complicated mix of guilt and confusion, realizing her boyfriend had clearly misunderstood the situation based on her own complaints. It became clear that my well-intentioned call to Aunt Penny had detonated a nuclear bomb in Sophie's life. Penny, furious that her daughter had a secret boyfriend, had ordered an immediate breakup, a conversation overheard by a nosy roommate who fed the information back to the boyfriend, leading him straight to me. After I proved my innocence with the Venmo receipt, and Sophie frantically swore her loyalty to him, the guy finally backed down, but not without firing one last shot. He sneered that I should know my place when a girl is taken, trying to salvage his bruised ego. Watching Sophie go over this violent insecurity, whispering sweet nothings to the man who just assaulted me, something inside me snapped. I walked up to them, and with calculated precision, slapped them both across the face, one after the other, refusing to be a pawn in their toxic little drama any longer. Since he threw the first punch, the administration wrote it off as mutual combat, but the damage to my anonymity was done. My roommates connected the dots, realizing the campus queen was the childhood crush I had drunkenly confessed to working so hard to follow to college. They treated it like a romance movie, convinced we were destined to be together, completely ignoring my insistence that the ship hadn't just sailed, it had sunk. Sophomore year arrived with rumors that Sophie was single again. My roommate Mark wiggled his eyebrows, announcing a beautiful woman was waiting for me downstairs. I went down to find Sophie, still turning heads in the lobby, but looking at me with a mix of accusation and entitlement. She immediately demanded to know why I blocked her number. I ignored the question, my coldness clearly rattling her. She bit her lip and dropped the news that she had broken up with him, expecting a reaction I no longer possessed. I realized then that the pedestal I had placed her on had crumbled into dust, the light was gone, and I simply didn't like her anymore. She rambled on about how her mother found out about the fight and forced the breakup, blaming me for her misery. I cut her off, asking what any of this had to do with me. Deflated, she finally asked the favor she came for. She begged me to lie to her mother and say I had a girlfriend, hoping that if Penny thought I had moved on, she would finally stop trying to force us together. Welcome to share your feelings in the comments section. Remember to like and subscribe, and if you want to see more story content, please check out the other videos on my channel.